Joe Driscoll, Executive Director of the Lindenwood Institute and also the Sustainable Ozarks Partnership. And I have the really difficult task of following that wonderful address, Sergeant Major Preston. I got to tell you that I understand how you got where you got to and why you're doing what you're doing right now. Let's give him another round of applause. Sometimes you have the unenviable task of following somebody who really made a good presentation, and that's my task this morning. My task is to kind of bring on our next speaker and kind of set some perspective about what we're trying to do here as far as passing along a message. Sergeant Major Army Preston did a really nice job, I think, of talking about the importance of partnerships that affect soldiers, the families, and make the Army strong. And your message is just wonderful. I know that you're spreading that around the country, and that's very much needed right now. We're going to hear from the Commanding General here a little bit later on, who's going to talk very much from an Army perspective. We're going to hear from the state government, essentially, that is doing work to defend our state's military assets against cuts and changes that are coming from Washington. We're going to hear about sustainability practices from around the country, particularly how they relate to growth and opportunity with Kevin Palmer. And we have obviously several other speakers here who are going to deliver great messages today. What we also wanted to talk about is a good national perspective on what other installations and other communities are doing to work together, especially examples of best practices that are being used in those partnerships around the country. Over time, as we said last year when we were here together, had gotten a bit complacent because we had really great leadership on behalf of Fort Leonard Wood, both in the Army. Our elected officials did a really wonderful job of making sure that dollars and missions were focused on Fort Leonard Wood. Well, the world's changed, and we're having to do business a little bit differently, and as a result, we're going to have to learn about new things and be very nimble about putting in place some new practices. We thought one of the best ways to do that was to bring a set of speakers who have a whole lot of different perspectives, particularly from around the country and what very successful efforts are ongoing. And our next speaker is probably at the top of that heap, someone who has the best vantage point around the country to know what organizations like ours are actually doing to look out over the horizon a little bit, try to figure out what's happening, prepare those places for making the best case possible that their installation or their service or their function is the best one for preserving, and also making the best case that best value is being had for the taxpayers and for our military community. Those are all awfully important things that we have to do, and certainly Sustainable Ozarks Partnership is working diligently in that direction. But we thought we'd hear it directly from someone who knows what that perspective is around the country. I have the pleasure this morning of introducing our next speaker. His bio is printed in the program, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but Tim Ford is CEO of the Association of Defense Communities, or ADC as it's called. Some of you know about Defense 360, which is essentially their online news publication that collects news from around the country, which is quite excellent. He's a familiar face at the Association of Defense Communities, where he served as Executive Director prior, and also the Deputy Director of the organization. And he's credited with literally guiding hundreds of member communities around the country in crafting preparation plans, particularly for BRAC 2005, but certainly since. He's nearly tripled the size of the organization. We have, by the way, just joined the Association of Defense Communities, so we're part of that effort in continuing to grow that national association. Mr. Ford is a nationally recognized expert and has spoken many times on the subject of relationship between military installations, military assets, and communities around the country. He's appeared on national news channels like CNN and ABC World News Tonight. He's widely quoted on this subject matter. Mr. Ford came to this world from workforce development, where he actually led New York City's Employment and Training Coalition. He is a native of Pennsylvania, and he has a bachelor's degree in urban studies from the University of Pittsburgh, and and a master's degree in urban and regional planning from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Tim Ford, CEO of the Association of Defense Communities.